have first Jerry Nadeau, who is the VP of Real Estate and Facilities at Thrive Earlier Detection, which is a biotechnology company based, I believe, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Jerry, can you hear us? Are you able to speak to us a little bit introduction about yourself, and then I'll jump straight into your slides. Let me know when you want to move on.
Sure. Yep. So thank you, Akash. Thank you, Red Thread, for inviting me, to the webinar. It's exciting to share our experience with others and obviously to hear others' experience. So as Akash was saying, we're Thrive Early Detection, and we were acquired this past January by Exact Sciences. So now we're part of a much bigger organization, but we had started the path down the road with Spaceti, prior to this acquisition, because we were looking for something nimble, quick, help us with COVID. And in honesty, the relationship came from an introduction from Mike Fahey at Red Thread, simply reaching out saying, how can we help? I've worked with Red Thread and Mike and Don for a number of years. There's a lot of trust there. And, I know that they have a pulse on what's going on in the industry, not even, outside biotech and diagnostics, but with the industry in general. So I'm always curious to hear, what are people doing? How are they managing space? What's the latest technology that we could take a look at and see how it could help. So that's how we came to Spaceti. Should I keep going, Akash? You tell me.
Yeah, I already switched the slide. I don't know if you can see the next slide. Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was interesting because we started to talk to Spaceti, then the acquisition happened, so things kind of went in a lot of different directions, and then we came back to Space. Always stayed close, but just always sharing what our journey was and what we could possibly use the software for in this new capacity. Because obviously with Exact, they bring a lot of software to the table for a lot of different things, but sometimes being the smaller subsidiary of a bigger company, I didn't need everything that they wanted to that they could put to us in the beginning. So, we stayed with the journey with Spaceti and with their blessing, continued on. And about a month ago, all of a sudden, I wouldn't even say it was a month. It became very fast and furious that the things were evolving with COVID, and bringing more people back into the office was something that was going to happen probably sooner than we thought. There really, as we all know with COVID, there is no plan, there is no set schedule. Things kind of happen, you react, and you hope you did the right thing. So during the COVID period, we always had our lab folks coming into the office, to keep the science going. And then there was a few of us on the support side that continued to come into the office. So, an office that was built out specifically in Cambridge for 280 people probably had about 20, through the whole period of COVID. And as recently as Monday, we decided to open it up to more people to come into the office. But it had to be a controlled process. We wanted to stick with the social distancing. We wanted to know who was coming into the office. Did they check the health policy box? So we needed a tool to help us gain some control about that. And rather than wait for the bigger piece that Exact was working on, we kind of recircled back with Spaceti and said, hey, this is a great solution. We can implement it quickly. Let's go forward. Now, I'll be completely honest, and this was more on Thrive side than it was on Spaceti side, but there were some hiccups, but the hiccups were never on the software side. And that's always my biggest fear when you're implementing any type of technology. We can want it on the owner's side, but if the technology can't keep up, there's going to be frustrations, and it's going to, be put to the side, and, that'll be a wasted effort on a lot of parts. In this situation, Akash and the team were very patient with getting direction from, 5 or 6 people at a time. Everybody had an idea, everybody had a need, everybody had, a different piece that they were looking for. And in a short amount of time. I mean, we were right up against this until, late Friday afternoon, last Friday, for a Monday implementation. So a lot of pressure, a lot of emails going back and forth. But it was always on the confusion was always on Thrive side and never on the software side. I mean, Akash and his team were very responsive to everything that came along, and and my approach after doing this as long as I have is, nothing's an emergency. You just stand back, take your time. Don't look at yourself in the mirror for what you're asking before you just put it on the inability of the software to meet your demand. Well, we have to evaluate our demands before we ever share them onto the Spaceti side. And when we did that and kind of funneled the direction through, one or two people, I think the process went a lot smoother. Again, I reiterate, it was always on the internal side. And I would reiterate that if we were talking about Spaceti or any other technology. If you don't know what you want from the owner's perspective, or from the client's perspective, you can't expect the software to come out of the box and solve every solution right away. I'm probably preaching to the choir with the team that's on the call here, but that's been the truth. And so here it is. It's only Wednesday. We just implemented it on Monday. It has met the needs, and if anything, over the last couple of days, and I think it's gotten quieter every day. It's been very quiet this morning. It was when you roll out a tool and you're expecting now 140 people to just adapt to it on day one and start using it, it's kind of crazy. So we've done a lot more training in-house, like the last 2 days, things that we should have done 3 weeks ago, given the opportunity, but things happen fast and we are what we are. So brings us to today. So the way that we use the system is basically we have employees that always come into the office, which is our lab staff and the staff that supports them, over 2 sites, over Baltimore and Cambridge. And so those folks have a permanent, assigned seat in the tool, so they don't have to go in and book something prior to coming into the office. Like now we've opened it up to the rest of the organization, and as long as the reservations are open, people can come back into the office, but they have to hit the health check, they have to reserve a space, and then they're allowed to come into the office or invited back into the office, whatever the best term is there. As always, I think as of Friday, there was a panic amongst my team and some of the HR team. If we open up to 140 people, of the people that weren't already coming to the office, 98% of them were going to show up at the door on Monday. I never thought that. I don't think anybody that, I don't know who else shared my beliefs, but I was like, it's summer. People are just getting used to coming back into the office. There is no mad rush to come through that office, and there is no lottery going on as you come through the door. This is like simply reintroducing to the office. Besides the fact that in Cambridge, we're in a new facility that no one had come to anyway, because we didn't finish it until halfway through, through the COVID period last year. So, this was coming into the office out of COVID, coming to a new office that people have never been to, with 65% of our staff being hired after COVID. So we were putting a lot of pressure on the tool to do a lot of things that, quite honestly, lack of planning on our side did not, that doesn't go on Spaceti and that team. That goes on us. So, I'm happy to report, out of the projected 120 people that were going to show up on Monday, 5 showed up over 2 sites. So, pandemic, the craziness that was expected never happened. I didn't think it would happen. So, it was a much smoother transition. But, the tool, again, what I was excited about is even the people that weren't coming back into the office right away, everybody was still interested in learning how the tool would work. So when they did come back into the office, what could they expect? What would be there for them? And, that Again, it's caused a lot of questions because people are asking questions that didn't even have any interest in coming into the office, but they're asking questions anyway. So again, I go back to we're fielding questions from a lot more people than actually planned on being able to use the tool day one. So
Jerry, I'll just
yeah,
cut you a little bit there, just on the interest of time. Thanks
yeah,
so much
please.
for the nice overall description of your journey, and I know it's been very recent as well. So hopefully more insights to come as more folks come back, especially after the summer, Memorial Day, not Memorial Day, Labor Day, and so on. So we're gonna more activities coming up. But we do have some questions which came from the panel submission during the initial sign up, which I would love to ask you. And again, folks, if you have any other questions, just type it into the chat. We'll try to get to it at the end, or get you some answers after the webinar. So a few questions I have here, Jerry, and we'll spend just five or so minutes on this, and I'll try to focus on the most important ones. This is more of relating to HR, and during the Thrive Detect implementation, we were in touch as Spaceti with teams from the HR, facilities, and real estate. So we were in touch with a diverse group of folks, and I'm sure this conversation has come up, especially amongst your non-lab staff. And the question is, how do we ensure equity in day-to-day conversations, strategic planning conversations, and in career opportunities for those who choose or must remain remote? And I think it's a really great question to start. I know it's a tough one, but I know since you've kind of facilitated this between HR, real estate, and facilities, if you can shed some light on that, how you're planning to do that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's a complex question. I think it's a question that a lot of companies have, and again, it's I feel like our situation is a little different only because we were a startup. Prior to COVID, we had 40 people between the two offices as Thrive. So fast forward, now we are in June of 2021. We have 140 employees. So you can do the math, how many people we've added after COVID outside of the office. And then add on to that, we joined, a 6,000 person organization in Exact. So there's a lot of questions, and the what we're going through right now is, this work from home in a structured work from home. It's a question I think a lot of companies are asking. It's a little different for us only because being, lab based, being a cancer diagnostics company. There is a good majority of our staff that have to come into the office. Being a scientist isn't an option to work from home. There are no labs in your house. So it's something that we have to balance when we put out the work from home. Okay, it can only apply to certain jobs. I can't, as facilities, have a majority of my team working from home. It just doesn't make sense. So it's a question. I think the career opportunities, being a pretty new company and pretty, forward thinking, I don't see any issues to anybody's career being limited, because they come into the office or out of the office. I think if anything, we've proven over the last, X number of months, people can still be productive. Now, where we're in the process of bringing one of our cancer diagnostics tests to the market, there's a lot of pressure. It's not status quo. We're not, I don't want to belittle any industry. We're not a bank or anything where things may be a little more, not as fluid at any given moment. So, really don't see a problem. Yeah.
You think at certain periods you might need more folks in the office just to meet a tight deadline, or depending on the situation, but maybe you have like an on season and an off season essentially when it comes to in-person work for some types of people.
Yeah, and the thing where Spaceti comes into that is, and we've already seen it even prior to the rollout. It's why it even put more pressure on the rollout, is that there reaches a point where the teams have to be face to face. And we're not forcing anybody to come into the office, but it's voluntary. But the teams want to see each other. They need to do some team building and things like that in the office. And especially when we're trying to integrate with Exact Sciences on the other side, we have some of their execs come into Cambridge, some of our execs come in so that they can do some work face to face, because as we see, face to face meetings, can save everybody probably 15 Zoom calls a day. So that in that sense, that's where now Spaceti is helping us bring those in with some type of control, not people just showing up and losing control, whether it be health check or anything else like that.
Awesome. And then last question for you, Jerry, and the rest I will try and get some answers for you folks after the call, just in the interest of time. What is the biggest challenge that you foresee with the return to work model, and how do you change the mindset of assigned seating? If there, as you, maybe you answered this already, because a lot of the people you onboarded in the past year started remote, but do they have like an inclination to come in? And for those people who started out in an office, how do you change that mindset of them needing to be there all the time and convince them to go to hybrid?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Akash. I almost see it as the opposite in some ways. We were always an open office, prior to COVID. So no closed in offices. Everything was a workstation. Now, the Cambridge office, as in contrast to the Baltimore office, we like to, and I have to work very closely with HR recruiting on this, is that, as this 2-site company prior to the acquisition, we'd love to put jobs out there saying you could work in Baltimore or you could work in Cambridge. Now, because of space constraints in Baltimore, the software there is really, really helping allow only 13 people to come into that office, because the other challenge there is that we're still in a social distancing configuration, so half of our workstations aren't usable at the moment. So we've limited the capacity, we've increased the hires. You can see the challenge that we have in Baltimore. In Cambridge, it's a little different. So now, even with Exact, we're kind of in that period where hoteling was taboo. Now we're considering hoteling. We don't know. Again, the company is still trying to figure out, like, how do they even roll out work from home to the office? Because on the facility side and the space planning side, I'm screaming for the data, because I need to plan for parking. I need to plan for a lot of things and need to know, are people coming in 2 days, and what are the constraints for people coming in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days? Especially, I will tell you right now, in Cambridge, and everybody in this area in a big city can feel the pain. It's parking. You gotta have parking for the people, because now we have the fear of public transportation, even though I think some of that is easing up. For us, the real, as much as offices are a constraint in Baltimore, parking is the constraint in Cambridge. So, we haven't quite implemented the software to look at that, because we don't own the parking, so it's a little more fluid. But hope that answered the question. Probably too many words as usual.
No worries. No, I think that was a great answer to the question, especially around how different offices might have different mentalities as well, even within the same company. Yeah. I think we have time for maybe one or two panel questions, or any questions that have been submitted in the chat other than these 4 that I have up here. I don't know, Jay, did anyone submit a question that we can ask Jerry?
No, Akash, I haven't seen any questions yet, but one thing I did want to add, to build off of Jerry's comment. In the past, we've seen a lot of open work plans, and that's been everybody's MO. It's been terrific. But the reality is that people want control over how they work, particularly after the pandemic. So what we're seeing is a little bit of a transformation in some of the principles we use for design, and part of that is a combo of open and enclosed spaces, which is something we're starting to revisit. We're really allowing folks to have the opportunity to have a range of applications, whether it's individual spaces with varying privacy and controls, or collaborative sets. So you'll see that filter through quite a bit here as we ease back into the office. But as far as Thrive goes, there's really no one size fits all for anybody. So it's kind of like you got to take it as it comes. And I think, Jerry, you're doing a great job, and I think Spaceti is complementing that mission perfectly. So.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents, Akash.
Well, thanks, Jay, for the comment. I think that's pretty much it for Jerry. Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate working with you and the team at Thrive Detect. It's been a pleasure. As you said, a lot of pressure so far trying to get everyone in this week. But I think it's going well, and hopefully much more to come. So thanks a lot, Jerry. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kash. Thanks, everyone.